some point.
Well, for pistol and
Apparently he was against going live.
Well, we'll just give that a minute and see if he comes back.
I have no idea.
Okay.
All right.
Once more with podcast over.
Yeah. It might just be you and me, or until someone flicks one of our switches, then it might be over early. I don't know, man.
Well, Chris is watching, as is someone, but I don't know. I give Ian a minute to try and cycle the ground power unit or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm starting to think the man is like trying to like throttle me or something before I even say anything bad.
Well, later I'll tell you how to tell if it's a real CSIS agent or not. Try this again.
Yes, please.
It's episode 318 on Canadian Patriot Podcast. This is John McDonald with music and truth until dawn. Right now, I've got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. It's 9 o'clock Canadian, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there, on or behind the line, in post, this will be your song. Because I can play the drops, but I can't hear them, and it's very confusing for me. I will fix it later.
Do we have drops now?
Well, we had drops before, but I seem to have broken my thing. Like, if I do this, you can probably
Mr.
hear.
Polly, you have 5 minutes, please.
Yes or no
Yeah,
question.
but I can't. So
I don't know.
I'll fix it in post.
Sounds good. We'd love to hear your feedback about the show. Please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. A version of the show is available on Stitcher and iTunes.
We need your help to support the show. You can visit Canadian Patriot Podcast on patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon. You can get a better quality version of the show for just $1 per episode. Show You're Not a Communist, buy a CPP t-shirt for just $24.99 plus shipping and theft, inflation and all. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com homepage and follow the link on the right.
This brings us to my favorite segment. It's called Plausible Deniability, and it involves alcohol. We'll start at the top of my screen. Pierre, what are you drinking?
40 Creek and Pepsi once again tonight.
Good man. Ian, what are you drinking?
Well, I spent a little time stockpiling some booze on the desk, getting ready to go for tonight's episode. And then Sad Panda had to come out because I have to drive my daughter to and from work. So tea, hot.
Earl Grey?
Peppermint.
It's cute.
What
Well,
would
that's good.
Jean-Luc say?
Well, actually, he would say good idea because I had lamb for dinner. So lamb and mint. You know, it's just,
Lamb and mint goes together. I'll give you
Yeah,
that.
lemon mint, yeah.
yeah. So it was good.
I think this is from out your way, Ian. I have a Granville Island Brewing beer.
Yes, sir.
So I can strongly recommend that you avoid this. It is a peach sour, and it is not good.
Well, they're not even really an island either. So, I mean, like, what do they know about beer?
They make other beer that I like, so I thought, but I'm not really a sour beer guy, and I'm not really a fruit beer guy. So putting those two together, well, it is an improvement on the previous week where I had the habanero mango pineapple disaster train or whatever that was called. It tasted like burning. Like it was not good. It just tasted like burning. This one tastes like regret, which is a slightly different flavor.
All right, then.
On the other hand, 5%. So whatever. I'm gonna get white girl wasted.
She's just done daiquiris.
Daiquiris are banned from my office. I'm not ever doing daiquiris ever again after the incident.
Yeah.
It's not a good time. Patriot Challenge, reminding people to do 5 things every day to be a better person. Exercise for 45 minutes, practice a skill for 10 minutes, read a book for 15 minutes, drink your 2 liters of water, and complete a task to improve your life. Also, Section 74 challenges are ongoing, but delayed. Money is required. GoFundMe. Everybody knows the deal, I hope. Listener feedback? Listener feedback. This is from Eric, who I think Eric is on Discord. Although I don't think his name is Eric on Discord. But I think Eric is on Discord. The subject was CCFR. Is anybody a field officer? Are you still a field officer, Ian?
Nope.
Okay, well, then I guess none of us are qualified to answer this question, but I'll give it a try. Eric's email reads, "Hey, fellas, I have a question for you. Is joining the CCFR worthwhile to join? I've heard different opinions from different people. I've heard it mentioned on CPP as I've gone through the back podcasts, and my sarcasm filter can't quite discern if you're for or against some sort of emoticon. It seems like a good thing to be part of, but I would like to hear your thoughts. If you've covered this in a past episode, just point me in the right direction. Looking forward to hearing from you. And by the way, what's with the Rod Giltaca shot? It's kind of funny, really, but I feel like there's an off-air story to be told. Another emoticon. Anyway, keep up the good work. Great show last night. Love the t-shirt. Looking forward to next week. Best regards, Eric." So, you were a field officer, Ian.
That is correct.
And I am not affiliated with the CCFR, although I am a member. I'm not the president, but I am a member.
I guess technically I still am, but it's on hiatus right now with all the COVID stuff. Nothing was going on, and I just took a break from it anyway. But honestly, of all the gun orgs to join, I would say the CCFR would be the one to join, because it's so far with the minimum amount of time compared to the other ones, they've been the most effective. They're certainly embracing the social media other than drawing fancy cartoons. And like some other orgs do. And I would say they're actually at least going forward with not just media campaigns, but lawsuits and everything else. So I'd say if you're going to join one, for sure, join them. They also have an in-house insurance program. So I would say, yes, worthwhile to join. And if you don't do anything at all, and they just come and take away your guns, I guess in hindsight, you probably could have done a little more than that. But I would say dollar well spent if you join the CCFR.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. The CCFR is probably the best, the least offensive pro-gun organization in Canada. There are several. There's the CSSA, the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. There's the NFA, the National Firearms Association. There's the CCFR, the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. I think that's it. I think there's 3.
Yeah, there's one for industry people. There's
the CSAAA, which is the Canadian Sporting Arms and Ammunition
Association.
Canadian Sporting Arms and Ammunition. No, that's not enough A's.
There's an association at the end. So there's a Sporting Arms and Ammunition Association. So
but that's an industry group. So unless you're in the industry, and by in the industry I mean own a firearms related business, you're not going to that group. Although they do throw one of the better parties at SHOT Show in Vegas. At least pre-COVID, they used to throw one of the better parties. The CSAAA put the Canadian party together. The CSAAA and the CCSA are very heavily integrated. There's a lot of overlap with those two organizations. I think the other thing with the CCFR, it's cheap. They're all cheap. I don't know what the other ones are off the top of my head. I think CSSA is like $45. I know because I had to renew mine because it's my insurance at one of my gun clubs. But so is Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters, and so is, I think, NFA. I don't know. I have a lot of gun org memberships because of the way insurance works, because different clubs have different insurance policies through different organizations and brokers. You have to have your individual insurance through something that's compatible because of liability stuff. So I have all of them. But the insurance stuff, the membership stuff, like it's CCFR is $40 a year. CSA is $45. That gets you the very bare minimum. The CCFR does offer other insurance on top of that for the legal defense insurance if you're inclined. They also do a business membership. I am a CCFR business member. Ragnarok Tactical is the business that has the membership because that's the way it works. I don't really get much for that, but I get to say that I am a business member, and they have some sort of marketing thing that I occasionally get involved in. I'm allowed to I'm allowed to bid on a thing in marketing stuff, I guess. I don't know what I get for it, but it doesn't cost me much, and it's a tax write-off. It looks good, so I do it because it's a business membership's cheap. It's like, I think $250 or something.
And see, for me, I like the insurance program associated with the CCFR for firearms legal defense, because I mean, for the sake of maybe a brick of ammunition is what a brick of 22 ammunition is what you're paying per year. And in case there's any sort of punishment by process going on or anything else, as long as you haven't, intentionally broken the law, you're fine. It's pretty good setup they got.
The legal defense insurance with CCFR, I believe, is a separate additional annual fee. It's like whopping $25.
Well, it depends on what plan you go with. I go with the family plan and everything else. I think it comes up to like $90 by the time it's all said and done. Because I got the gold star package, but even I think for $20, you get legal advice, and it doesn't have to be on firearms either. So you can actually phone up and say, "Hey, I'm going through divorce, and I have a divorce law question," and they will answer it. They'll phone somebody. They'll get somebody to phone you back and answer the question. It doesn't have to be anything regarding firearms. Yeah. So, fantastic deal on that. If you have a specific legal question to be answered.
I do like that. I do like, we've got family membership. I've got the business membership. I've got legal defense insurance. I've got a bunch of them because insurance is cheap. And unfortunately in this country, trial or punishment through process is a thing. Mm-hmm. So going to trial and everything is expensive. Yes. CCFR is also the only firearms org, pro firearms org, not only firearms org, pro firearms org that has a registered federal lobbyist. At one point, another organization did. They no longer have a registered lobbyist. So the only one on the books, and you can go check the books, it's listed on the Parliament website who registered lobbyists are. Tracy Wilson, who I believe is the Vice President of Communications at CCFR.
Yep.
It's been a while since I had to look Tracy's stuff up. I think she's still the VP of Communications. She's the only registered pro firearms lobbyist. There are some other less pro firearms lobbyists. We'll be talking about those in the show later. We have a story.
Yes.
So I would say, any organization that's pro guns and pro freedom and pro leaving me alone is a good thing. CCFR is, if I had to pick one, probably the better one, but $40 really does not get you much, and it doesn't get them much to run their organization. Like $40 does not go far. So probably want to look at kicking them in some more money in some way if you really believe in what they're doing.
And by the same token, if we get all 2 million people to get a membership, it'd be another thing. But again, you might get I think we've talked about this many, many times. We're getting 5% buy-in on legal gun owners.
Yeah, I don't know that they have published numbers for the CCFR, but it is difficult to get people to become members. I think at least in my part of the country, it is very common to have membership with an organization due to the insurance requirements that most ranges have. Because of the way that the ranges have their insurance underwritten, the members have to also have their own individual liability insurance. Unfortunately, it gets splintered out to cases like me where it's like, well, you can join the OFAH. And it's like, yeah, those FUDs do not care about my AR-15s. In fact, if they could have me turn in my AR-15s, they would be in favor of it, as we've seen with OFAH.
Yep.
They give you a free year if you did that.
I am not a big fan of OFAH. They do some good things for hunting and conservation. They are not a very good pro-gun org, nor NFA, nor CSSA, because they're not really actively, if you're not lobbying the government, you're not really doing much. I guess you could make cartoons on the internet, or you could write newsletters, but if you're not interacting with government officials, you're not really doing anything of value, in my opinion.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think they'll get that much more support or anything until, it's unfortunately, I think until it gets too late, right? Until 90% of the funds get something taken away, then they'll be crawling to the CCFR, being like, oh, we need your help. And it's like, yeah, well, we needed your help a long time ago. And, only because now you're butthurt, you're here to say, we're here to do it. But hopefully it doesn't get to that.
Not that I look forward to it, but I welcome the day when the boomers have their high-powered sniper rifles taken away and they can't hunt deer anymore because they failed to do anything about making sure that I was able to buy an FNFAL.
Or an
Not that solves my problem. No, because I wasn't old enough to buy an FN when they became prohibited. But there's no practical reason why I can't have a semi-auto FN. Right? It just when they get their comeuppance, it will be entertaining, but it will still be bad for me.
Because for the last 3 decades, it's been, well, it doesn't affect me, so I don't care. And that, unfortunately, eventually, as we can see momentarily, it sooner or later is going to affect them.
Yep.
Well, and that'll be the problem, right? Is after they've banned all the machine guns, actual machine guns, full autos. They've banned all the converted autos. They've banned not all of the semi-autos, but they're working really hard on banning the semi-autos. So what comes next? Well, it'll be handguns, and then what's left after that? It's regular rifles and shotguns. And by regular rifles and shotguns, I mean high-powered, long-range sniper rifles with telescopic sights. Like your deer rifle.
And they're 10 times more powerful than an assault rifle.
Well, yeah. I mean, wait till they start bringing that out. I don't hunt, so I'm bad at this sort of stuff. But I believe in Southern Ontario, you need something bigger than a 243 to shoot a deer with. I don't think you can shoot them with 223 in Southern Ontario. So you are required to use a larger caliber than my AR in order to hunt deer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they last I heard, it might have changed, but yeah, last I heard you need a 243 minimum, and in some areas they restricted it where you can't even use a 30 cal. That's why the 270 is a big popular now, especially in Southern Ontario. In certain areas, you can't shoot deer or big game with a 308, 30-30, or a 30-06. So that's where the 270 gets popular with a lot of people. But I do think the 223, depending what bullet tip you put in it, would probably be efficient enough. But yeah, it was the caliber and the size.
You're not allowed in Southern Ontario. You're capped out. I think like south of Barrie, I don't think you can use anything bigger than a 30 caliber or higher. I don't think is permissible for most WMUs. And in Southern Ontario, it has to be at least a 243. So that's like not a lot of options. My point more so being that like hunting caliber firearm more powerful than AR-15 caliber firearm, right? Like generally, not always, because like some things 30-30, for example, 30 caliber, but not powerful. A bunch of hunting autism aside.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
yes, when they get around to banning all of the.
I'm not CCFR member yet, but that is my next thing to purchase.
Well, and I think it's one of those things. Everybody's only got so much money, and I do gun stuff, right? That's my.
Yeah.
I have a job and a family, and I drink, and I rant about the government on the internet. But the only thing that I have as a hobby is gun stuff.
No.
Right. So I am a member of most of the firearms organizations, whether I want to be or not. And I'm a member of many ranges and many associations that are involved in the shooting sports in some way, because that's what I do. And I'm not expecting everybody to join all of the organizations. I don't think that's a very good use of resources. But if you're going to put money into something, the CCFR is a good choice because they do present well. Tracy and Rod do speak well. They do get media spots. They don't present as cranky old white men, although Rod does present as a white man. The puka shell necklace and the paisley shirts do make him look more presentable on TV than some of us. I am not the kind of face that they want to put on TV unless it's like an arsenal was recently reported in the county in which I reside, in which case they will find my old social media profiles and put my picture up. But aside from that, people like Rod and Tracy do a good job, and they are about education and outreach, which the other orgs are not. And I do think that we are, well, and again, we'll see, and we've got news articles about that today. We are woefully lacking in firearms education in this country, despite the number of people that have firearms and firearms licenses.
Mm-hmm.
Onward to the news.
Yes, please.
Okay, the news. So a little bit older. I've got some stuff going back to closer to the election than to today, but this is in the Western Standard. Liberals studying ban on hunting rifles and shotguns.
Say it isn't so.
Yeah.
What? But they would never ban your fill in the blank deer rifle over under bird gun, what have you. They would never ban that.
But
No, first they're going to call it an assault weapon and then they're going to ban it.
yeah, but don't we have a tweet from Bill Blair saying that, shotguns are not involved? Like, wouldn't that be good enough to like get out of any jam?
We should talk about Bill Blair more too.
Yeah, we have video of Trudeau on Parliament Hill saying that he would never ever ban firearms because it's part of the Canadian culture and so on and so on. Back when he was just an MP, but what does that do, right?
I don't know what you mean by just an MP. He just wasn't prime minister yet.
Well, you don't say. He wasn't exactly the upgraded MP. So
yes, he was not currently sitting in the seat of power.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what caused this to occur, but for some reason, the public safety ministry decided to engage a research company in Toronto. Their name escapes me now. I was looking them up earlier. In Environics.
Yeah.
Which is owned by Bell Media for some reason. I don't know why Bell owns a research polling firm, but they do. I didn't see anybody on their board that looked like they were like obviously in the bag of the Liberal government. But I mean, if they're a wholly owned subsidiary of Bell Media, they probably may as well be, because they're going to be getting that sweet government subsidy.
Well, yeah. I mean, look how much they got paid to do the survey.
Well, and that was there's some interesting numbers coming out of that. So they did a 2,000 Canadian nationwide survey with 20 focus groups from various regions of the country. So conceivably one by province and territory. That works out to pretty close to 20. Maybe one bonus one for Toronto. Yep. And they were paid almost $250,000 to do this.
Yep.
Not exactly a small amount of money, but I couldn't find anything nefarious in the people running Environics. They're a research company that I've heard of before. They've done a bunch of polling. They're big into the cannabis industry and they're big into social justice stuff. So you see them come up a lot. You see the results of their polling come up a lot. And being that they're owned by Bell, I wondered why the name sounded familiar. And it's because other Bell subsidiaries tend to use them for their own polling. And that was why I was like making a connection when I started to look into them earlier. So they did this very sweeping survey with these 2,000 Canadians, and they've come up with numbers that I'm sure will not shock you.
Yeah. A
quarter of Canadian households own firearms. No kidding. If you don't live in Toronto, Vancouver, or Montreal, there are guns around. And if you do live in Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal, there are still guns around. They're just
So,
less,
legal guns.
fewer of them are registered. But 15% of the Canadians that were surveyed rated gun-related violence as a major threat to public safety, and 13% said it was not a threat at all. So those are pretty close numbers.
Pretty 50-50, yep.
Well, 15 and 13, but that still leaves 70-ish.
No, but I'm saying that like half people are going one way and half are going the other, as far as equal numbers go.
Yeah, the upper and bottom ends of the bell curve, which weird that it's almost like a bell curve like that we have the upper and lower distributions. 40% said that shotguns and rifles should be illegal, and 63% said handguns should be banned.
Buds.
Well, possibly.
Brings me to the shirt, but anyway.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Anyway, I just find it funny, like, fun fact, of course, as we know, more people shoot firearms for target shooting and hunting purposes and everything else than actually play golf or play hockey in this country. And yet neither one of those two has a stigma attached to it quite like we do. And again, they're just trying to telegraph their next move, which is this, and trying to justify it with a survey, but paying a company $100 per person basically to run a survey. I think you pretty much dictate also the results that you want too, and that's pretty much,
I wondered when it was tightly integrated with Bell Media and their relationship with the government, and I wondered with the dollar figure that was associated with this to have a couple of focus groups and survey 2,000 people, and it worked out to $110 or whatever it was a person.
Yeah.
Seems a little suspect, but also 89% of the people they polled said that the current government is not doing anything to address gun violence. So most people, surprisingly, continue to be uninformed about what's going on in the world around them.
Yeah, and even it says that, what was it? How many people didn't even know that the gun ban was being used?
90% of respondents
knew nothing about the gun ban. So the only thing I suspect about this is if they were in on the government or whatever, since the RCMP has addresses and names of everybody who has a legal firearms license in Canada, do you think that maybe some of those addresses were skipped by this polling thing to make sure that these numbers kind of complied with the matter that the government does want, right? They look at,
I see where you're saying that. I don't think so. I think this is going to be, this was a poll that was probably put onto one of Bell Media's many subsidiary media companies as a website with a yes, no button. Do you have guns? Yes, no. Do you like guns? Yes, no. Are guns bad? Yes, no. Should we ban guns? Like, I feel like it was probably more in that facet, and they happened to get 2,000 responses, and that was the cutoff number that they needed for how many people that they were paid to poll. I don't know what their polling methodology was. I didn't find it on the Environics website when I looked to see for this particular poll, because sometimes they do publish that information, and I've done a significant amount of math in my life, so looking up statistical stuff and looking at people's methodology is a thing that I have had to do. I didn't see it published in this case, so how they arrived at this and who those 2,000 people were is a mystery. I don't think it was nefarious. I think people are just very, very badly informed about what's going on. Well, they don't care. It doesn't affect them, right? They don't have guns. They don't like guns. They don't want guns. People that have guns, like guns, want more guns, want the government to leave us alone with our guns because we're not hurting anybody. And criminals don't follow the law anyway. So, really.
What's the population of Canada?
38 million. We had to look this up recently, and I was not drunk enough as to forget.
Okay, so 38 million. So you pulled 2,000 people across the country. So you pulled, we're talking
a fraction of a percentage.
Yeah, by like a lot, not like 0.1 of a percentage.
No,
we're talking like zero. We're talking crazy amounts, right?
No, and
but
these numbers, 2,000 person national poll is pretty common. That's the same sample size that they use for election predictions.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. But
I'm not saying it's not. I'm just like, that's the methodology. This is a common methodology.
And I just find these numbers are quarter of Canadians households have guns. Like, yeah, I could agree with that. 13%, it's not a threat. 15, like, I don't know. These numbers are just kind of, flip flopped a little bit. That I had hoped, there would be more than 2,000 people polled, and hope. I wish there was a way that we could get, if you want to poll 2,000 people, you poll people or 1,000 people that don't own guns, and pull 1,000 people that own guns, and see how those polls come in, right? Is it split down the middle 50-50? Or, did you do a bunch of FUDs that are like, no, you don't need a handgun, right? Might work against us, might not, I don't know. But I just wish there was a way of getting, a bit more info and maybe a bit of backstory. I don't need names, addresses, and social security numbers of people they were polled, but just
I'd
info
kind of like
on
those.
I mean, could be useful in the future, yes. Well, depending on how all this goes, but just actual fact-based that, like, look, we polled 2,000 people. 25% of those people were licensed gun owners.
Yeah, see, this is, I think, misleading in how the Western Standard reports this. I don't think 25% of respondents in the poll said they had a firearms license. I think this is simple math based on the RCMP data of how many firearms licenses there are in the country versus the number of households. Because there's, I forget what the current StatsCan number is. I think it's like 14 or 15 million households in Canada. So if you 2.5 million PAL holders, you divide them out, it's roughly 25%.
I understand that 25% is due to licensed gun owners and population and households and everything. But I wish we knew how many of the people were polled were actual gun owners, right? I know it wasn't very 25%.
Few. Yeah, I'm going to say very few. And I think you're right. The correlation that I'm drawing from this, the causal relationship, if you will, it seems to me that the less well-informed people are about firearms, the more they want them banned. This is the observation.
Absolutely. Right. I've had conversations with people like, I have 2 people I work with, and one of them is like, oh, I want to go buy a gun. And I was like, okay. And he knew I had firearms. He's like, how do I do that? I'm like, okay. I was like, well, look up for a course. He's like, for what? I'm like, well, you got to do a course that teaches you, the simple basics and how to handle it safely, and you have to show someone. So it's like, it's a 2-day course. I'm like, unless you want to own a pistol. And he's like, yeah, I want a pistol. Like, I want to walk around with a pistol. I was like, buddy, you can't do that in Canada. He recently moved to Canada a few years ago. And he's like, what do you mean? So I started explaining all these gun laws. And I'm like, no, like, restricted. The only place you can shoot, I was like, is at a approved gun range. I'm like, certain rifles. It's like, you want to go hunting and this, that. So I started explaining the whole process. And he's like, well, how long does it take? And I'm like, well, I did my course in, December a few years ago. I was like, and I got my license a week before my birthday, which is the end of May. So I'm like, it's like a 5-6 months process. And I was like, and I've, I'm 30 something, 33, I think. I don't know, I'll check later. But I was like, I've never been in handcuffs. I was like, I've never been detained. I'm like, yeah, I've talked to cops. I've had a speeding ticket or whatever. But I was like, I have not had anything. And I'm like, and that was pretty much like my fast process. Like, I have family members in the RCMP. My dad had top level security clearance when he worked in the military. He had secrecy clearance and all that stuff. So I was like, I was like, even then, and I'm like, you've recently been here. I was like, I didn't inquire how long or whatever. I was like, I don't even know if you're eligible to even go through the course. And once I started explaining all this to him, his eyes kind of widened up, and he was like, you got to do all that shit just to get a gun? I was like, yeah.
No, you got to do all that to get a gun legally.
Yeah, to legally own it, right? I was like, and then I was like, I didn't even do the restricted, right? I did the ass backwards thing, and now I'm regretting it. I didn't do my restricted course when I did it, which I should have.
You're not alone in that. Lots of people don't do the restricted course up front, and
so
we should counsel those people against it. So if you don't have your firearms license yet and you're thinking about it, or your friend's thinking about it, tell them to just get it all done in one.
Yeah, absolutely. Get the restricted, even if you don't plan on buying a pistol, or you to become a gun member or get a membership. Like, I know Ontario, you don't need to be part of a club to buy restricted. I know a lot of other provinces are like that, but I'm like, even Like I know waiting lists can be crazy, so I'm like, just do it. Doesn't
It's
it's an extra what, $20, I think, when you file initially.
I think for the filing, I think it's the same price if you file them at the same time. I think you have to pay again if you do it a second time, but it's been a long time since I did my firearms license. I don't remember the intricacies of that.
I thought I could have sworn it was an extra $20 if you were doing
But
non-restricted and restricted.
maybe it was. Maybe there's an extra filing fee, but I'm sure that it's more expensive to do it separately because you have to pay the full filing fee again.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you're gonna do, or you have somebody that is thinking about doing it, just do it all at once.
Yeah, it's over.
If the instructor is doing a one-stop thing with like non-restricted, restricted, and hunting, and you can do them all back to back to back and get them done, just crank it all out in one go, because trying to find it to do one off later is a pain in the butt.
Yes, I'm currently trying to figure that out for the last 2 months, and it's a big pain in the ass. So yeah, that's my recommendation. Yeah, go do it all. And worst comes to worst, you don't buy a pistol, right off the get-go, you don't think about it. But like 3 years later, like I am, right?
But later you might.
3 years. I'm like, so
here we go.
like, do I do the course? And
Brad on YouTube says it was $30 when he did his 2 months ago. So there we go. $30 is the current figure.
Yeah, I remember him saying if he went back to do his secondary, it was very cheap within a month of doing his non-restricted. If you wanted to add his restricted to it within a month, it was very, very cheap. But yeah, now I'm looking at like $140 just to do my restricted.
Yeah, because you got to do all the paperwork again.
Yeah.
So. Well, don't worry. We're soon going to not have to do any paperwork because they're going to ban them all.
Yeah.
CTV news. Again, this is going back a little bit. This is the end of September. Gun control group urges Trudeau to name new minister to advance liberal promises. Because apparently Bill Blair is not fucking us hard enough.
We probably didn't buy him enough scotch.
I was just going to say he is a useless drunkard, but Paulie Souvient has called on the Prime Minister to appoint new cabinet positions, including a replacement for Bill Blair. Blair, as everybody knows, if you listen to the podcast, you're probably aware of this, but it bears repeating. Blair is the current Minister of Public Safety, or he was the Minister of Public Safety in the last two governments. I expect he will be the Minister of Public Safety again in this government. Paulie Souvient, Wendy Souquier, Natalie Provost. No, it's not Wendy Souquier. It's Natalie Provost and another person. Their name escapes me now. The Paulie Souvient people are demanding that Bill Blair be replaced with someone more suitable because they feel he is untrustworthy as he defended Bill C-21.
And before I forget, is Heidi Ratchett.
Heidi Rathagen, thank you. That's the
whatever.
Thank you.
Yeah, however you pronounce that.
Heidi Rathagen and Wendy. Heidi Rathagen and not Wendy Souquier. I keep getting Natalie Provost. Thank you. So everybody that remembers, Bill C-21 is an act to amend certain acts to make certain consequential amendments to the Firearms Act.
Yes. Thank God our Prime Minister was a
feminist?
He was a replacement teacher for drama. That's a lot of acting.
Yeah, well, it is a fair number of acts. So C-21, everybody remembers this. Gender-based violence, self-harm involving firearms, yellow flag, red flag license suspensions, license revocations, gun smuggling and trafficking stuff, allowing municipalities to support handgun ban, or allowing municipalities to declare handgun bans, and $250 million over 5 years in anti-gang funding. That's sort of the high level. Airsoft. I forgot that was another big ticket item on that. Ensuring that mid-velocity replica firearms are prohibited, aka airsoft.
Yeah. So pretty much all of that was already illegal, other than municipalities being able to ban.
Well, and
handgun bans, right?
They did change a bunch of stuff. They changed the the red flag laws for applications to remove firearms from individuals that might pose themselves a risk or others. There was rules about that before, but it wasn't red flag laws. It's slightly like they're tweaking language, but really that stuff already existed. The yellow flag stuff is that, again, it kind of existed before, but they're changing how it's codified. So if you contact the CFO and report a complaint, the firearms will be removed until the complaint's addressed, whereas before it was discretionary. So there's a bunch of minor changes in that. The same thing with surrendering firearms during a legal challenge. Previously, depending on the type of legal challenge and what it involved, you might be able to retain your firearms. Under Bill C-20, under Bill C-21, you then have to surrender the firearms, which they might be destroyed during the proceeding, depending on the length of time that your trial takes.
So are you allowed to transfer to another gun owner? Depending
I don't know what the deal is with. I don't know what the rules are with C-21. Prior to that, in certain circumstances, I believe that you could, but the whole argument for Pauly Sufjan is that C-21 didn't go far enough, and Bill Blair is not fucking us over aggressively enough. We're not using our safe words enough for their satisfaction, so they need to replace them with somebody who's going to fuck us harder.
Either that or someone that can gag us better so that we can't use the safe words.
Well, a strong possibility, but like this is the whole, like, this is their argument, is like they banned a bunch of stuff. They did an order in council, which is not a law, to prohibit in paper a bunch of rifles and other firearms that we otherwise should have access to. 50 caliber rifles, for example. I forget what the limit was, 14,000 joules of energy, whatever the magic number was.
10,000 joules.
10,000 joules? Okay, cool. 10,000 joules of energy, or 20 millimeters worth of bore diameter, or whatever the other. There was a set of technical criteria, and then there was also the big giant list of fun stuff you're just not allowed to have anymore. Except we all still have, because I have just as many safes as True, not what I was trying to get to. I have just as many AR-15s in my firearms safes as I did before the ban today. So how many guns I have? Well, actually, I've increased the number of guns I have, but how many AR-15s I have has remained the same from before the ban to now. So, like, literally just that the public safety is not screwing us hard enough. They want to replace them. Like, an aggressive masturbatory motion.
Yes. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Yeah, there were 1,500 guns on that list, but like, how many of those were already like stuff we couldn't own? Like, we couldn't own grenade launchers and anti-tank guns.
No, then that's true. And a lot of it was redundant things, like every version of every AR-15 in the FRT. So like, I don't know however many hundreds of manufacturers of ARs there are.
Yeah, but like, I would like to know, going through that list, how many of those were actually guns that you could legally own via restricted or non-restricted? Because they banned the CX4 Storm, which was, well, one of the models was non-restricted. They banned
you could get a Storm that was
so some of them were non-restricted. So I mean, everybody's going to be able to keep those if they're smart. But how many of those 1,500, over 1,500 assault rifles that they banned were actually legal guns that you could have purchased if you had the proper license, right? Whether it was restricted or not restricted.
I don't know, but I think it's the vast majority, because I think a lot of that 1,500 is just a big made up scary number because of all the redundancy involved. Because I think if you removed all the redundant models of like things that are the same but labeled differently, like if they had just said AR-15s, it wouldn't have been 1,500 models. It would have been like a few hundred, right? Because most of it was just different AR. And the same thing, like the CZ858, the VZ58, whichever one it was that was on the list, both of them that were on the, because it comes in like 15 different flavors or 20 different flavors, whatever. And the same thing with the Swiss Arms guns, because the Swiss Arms came in like 12 different kinds. So like, if you start eliminating all the variants and options, you get down to a pretty small number pretty quick. You get into things like Javelin missile launchers that have never been for sale in this country.
Yeah. And that's what I mean, right? Like that's the thing that was driving me nuts. It was like, I'm reading this list when it first came out, and I was like, fuck, I should have gotten my restricted. Look at the shit I could have gotten.
Yeah, I could have got an anti-aircraft rocket.
Yeah, I was like, why? Because now it's banned, right? It wasn't banned before, so I'm like, okay, whatever. I needed to get my restricted to get it, but I'm like, yeah, there was just, I mean, yes, there was a lot of redundancy on different models, and they were very vague on a lot of variants from this. But yeah, I'm actually curious about how many actual out of that 1,500 list, how many actual guns were available for sale in Canada, because I know we both know it's not.
I'm going to say it was very close to that 1,500 though, because of all of the AR variants and CZ variants and all of the other. But if they had collapsed lists down to just like whatever it was, basically the 10 rifle types that they banned,
yeah,
it was probably like the 10 of them that you could have gotten, and then like some other weird, because I think there was some 50 caliber stuff, like there was some bolt action 50 cals and things on there that would have been like the Barrett 99 maybe that you could have got before if you wanted to drop 10 grand on a rifle.
Yeah, pretty much anything 50 cal was over the 10,000 joules law.
Yeah, but they were all would have been non-restricted prior to that. So two things occur to me. This is sour peach beer is growing on me as I'm beginning to get to the end of the can. The other thing that occurs to me is I wonder if I can register a screwdriver as a 9mm pistol if I give it a serial number and put a 9mm bit on it. If I call the CFO and try to register it, because that would be funny.
I'll try tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking, like, if I take an impact driver and I put like a 9mm socket on it and try to register it as a 9mm pistol, I wonder if they'll give me paperwork.
See, I'm down, but I'm like, I have one of those in my truck that I take every day and whatever, and I'd hate to lose that paperwork.
Yeah, but nobody needs the 9mm one. If you registered as a 10mm, you'd be screwed.
Yeah.
See, I don't have 10mm is always 10mm is always the
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, the one you always lose.
The one you always lose, yeah.
Yeah.
Why I now have about 6 of them. At one point I had 10, but they walk away on you.
Yes. You just buy those and hand them to someone and just be like, when I come over, hand me one back when I'm asking for it.
Let's do a couple other ones that also came out uncomfortably close following the election. September 23. And I have not seen the follow-up on this, which makes me think that it's been delayed by the courts. CTV again. SNC Lavalin Corporations and 2 former top executives charged with fraud and forgery by that RCMP.
Yes.
Now, this goes back decades. This goes back to 1997. 2 execs for 2 different SNC Lavalin companies. One was the former, I guess they're both former vice presidents of different arms of SNC Lavalin. So SNC Lavalin and SNC Lavalin International. Neither of these people have worked for SNC Lavalin in years. They, the 2 former vice presidents, as well as both SNC Lavalin and SNC Lavalin International, facing charges that were supposed to go to court that, as far as I can tell, have not been seen before a court.
No.
Going back to bribes that were paid in exchange for obtaining a contract. Gee, that sounds a lot like book club last month.
Yes. Yes, it does. For the Jacques Cartier Bridge between 1997 and 2004.
Right. And isn't the Jacques Cartier Bridge, isn't that the reason that SNC Lavalin lost their ability to bid on contracts in Quebec for like a decade?
Isn't that the bridge they just had to rebuild right next to it?
Well, I mean, bridges have a service life. I don't know if it had to be rebuilt just because it was how long it was or not. Well, not that kind of an engineer. I don't know.
No, I don't know. I'm not that kind of engineer either. But I mean, isn't the Jacques Cartier? Is it? I don't know. I drive to Montreal. I drive over.
I don't know. Montreal's a terrible place.
Yes, it is. And I mean, trust me, there's a lot worse fucking bridges out there than the bridge they just built right next to another bridge, which I want to say is the Jacques Cartier Bridge, but it might be wrong. I could be wrong.
Oh, Chris wants to point out that the time between charges and cases going to court is months. And yes, Normally it should be, which is one of the reasons why this threw me off, because this came out September 23, which was right after the election. I was like, oh, weird that SNC Lavalin is catching charges like days following the election. And then it was supposed to go to court the next week. It was supposed to be in court on September 27th.
Yeah.
Right. So the election was on the 20th, the 21st. The article came out in CTV on the 23rd with no actual details about the charges. And there was no, I could be in French. It's in Quebec. I couldn't find copies of the charging documents. And I couldn't find any copies of any court records regarding the two executives who they name in the media. It's Normand Morin and Kamal Francis. But I can't find any charging documents on anything publicly available when you Google those names. So I don't know. Maybe it's French. Maybe I'm bad at Google. But also, like, the timeline really confused me because we heard nothing about this. It's from stuff from 1997 to 2004. It's days after the election, and it's supposed to go to a court like 5 days after that. And then we never heard anything else about it. Like, not that anything about SNC Lavalin ever adds up or makes sense, because
no, I mean, it's a legit
so many
company.
scams.
There's nothing sketchy ever coming.
Oh no, I know they're a legit company. I think there's a lot of sketchy things about them. On the upside, I guess most of the sketchy things happened in Libya.
Potato.
It was very odd to see this, and I'm surprised we haven't seen more SNC Lavalin stuff in the news lately. Another fun one with the Chinese government this time, and again, following hot on the heels of the election. I'm gonna totally butcher this, and Ian's not here to correct me. Meng Wanzhou. There's probably emphasis on the wrong syllable on that. She's the executive from Huawei.
Huawei.
She's
it Wanzhou?
No, her name is Meng. I don't know how to say her last name. I think it's Wanzhou. Yes, she's the Huawei executive that's been camped out in Vancouver in the private penthouse suite for months and months and months.
Yeah.
She's being extradited back to China.
Yeah.
Conveniently, the two Michaels are also being released from China. So this is going back. I think we touched on this like 3 years ago, but this is going back like 3 years. Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor.
Yeah.
They've been incarcerated by the Chinese government for like 3 years on charges of espionage, which our government is not saying anything about or apparently doing anything about. And now Meng is going back to China and the Michaels are coming back to Canada.
Oh. Well,
also conveniently in the week following the election.
Yeah. I actually think the Liberals had fuck all to do with this. I really do. I think it was just the justice system that eventually got around to actually the extradition order that the US asked for. They were like, yeah, no, you don't actually fall within the criteria for us to say, yes, you're going to the US. And it was dropped and now she can go back. But yeah, it just happened to be right around that time where
I know. The timing of it is very convenient. It's because our government has done nothing about these two Canadians that have been locked up by the Chinese government for 3 years since 2018, December 2018, right? That was when they got incarcerated in Beijing originally.
Yeah.
They've done nothing about that. And now we're going to extradite this executive from Huawei back to China, and the alleged spies have been released.
Wasn't one of them convicted?
I don't know. I honestly have not been following the case closely.
Oh, I could be wrong, but I thought I saw one article that like one of them was convicted, and it was like his conviction was like eventually punishable by death or whatever. So like I could be wrong.
It's espionage, right?
And it's China.
Like, well, okay, yes, but any country,
except for here.
Maybe not any country, but and
most.
maybe I've read too many Tom Clancy novels, but I feel like most countries, if you get charged with and convicted of espionage,
Yeah.
they have capital punishment for those things.
Yeah.
And maybe
that's what I mean.
not everywhere, but I feel
No.
like that's a pretty global universal standard. Like, if you get caught being a spy, we get to shoot you. That's like the agreed upon standard.
We get to do the pew pew against you. Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Good for these guys, I guess, being out. I don't know. Maybe they're spies, maybe they're not, but our government has again managed to do precisely nothing for actual Canadians while wasting a ton of time and money on things that are less important.
Yeah. But
I mean,
happy
yes,
that they are hopefully going to be coming home soon.
Well, I don't know if I'm happy. I'm indifferent about it. I don't really know them or their particular case, and I don't really. If you're spying on other countries' government and committing espionage, then like you're committing espionage. That sucks. Don't do that. Or if you do it, don't get caught doing it, right? Or
right, because they've got family here asking them, "Oh, come home," and it's like, I think one of them's married, has kids. Like, I don't know, if you're gonna be a spy, I don't know if having wife and kids would be the best.
I don't know if they are spies or if they're not spies. It could be the Chinese government just being the Chinese government, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because like, hey, at least national interest is a thing where they are. They're at least working in their own best interest. I don't know enough about the case to really be genuinely interested one way or the other. I just think the timing is very coincidental. Election, extradition, and then we're getting back these two alleged espionagers. Not sure how to. Yeah. The emphasis on the right syllable. And in this case, like, there's a tense thing and also a noun verb agreement that I'm having trouble with. But in any case, they're back and Meng's going to China. So I don't know. Good luck with that. Good luck all around.
Yes. I mean, if they were just regular people from Canada, I'm happy they're coming back.
Yeah, I agree. And if that was the case, if there was like some kind of thing where they were like, the Chinese government was mad at them for being in China and doing stuff that they were alleged to have been doing, then like, yeah, that sucks. But also, like, I don't know. I feel like it's the same advice my parents gave me when I was a kid. Don't do dumb shit with dumb people in dumb places.
Yes.
Like, I don't know. Don't go to China. I mean, don't get mad when China is upset that you've broken their laws. I don't know.
It'll be straight up white in China.
Well, I don't know if that part is necessarily the problem. Like, I mean, I know they're an ethno state, but I don't think they're going to like, the Westerner is a spy. I don't think that I don't know. It seems very movie cliche for like that to be what was going on. I feel more like it was like, okay, there was some sort of thing that looked like espionage, so it was treated like espionage. But I don't know. It could have also been like retaliatory for some other political action. Who
knows?
Well, somebody knows, but this happens at a level of government that I don't understand.
Yes.
Other levels of government I don't understand. One of my favorite games recently is literally healthcare shortage province year. Just Google that in any like combination that healthcare shortage Alberta 2007. Healthcare shortage Ontario 2019. Do it whatever every year, every province you do it for. There's always news articles for those. Like, it comes up regardless of how you write the search terms. So this is in the National Post. Canada's overworked healthcare sector brace for staff shortages as vaccine mandates loom. So many provinces. Quebec, I think, is already there. Ontario is coming soon. I think Ontario, is later this month, later in October. I think Quebec already has their mandate. BC's mandate was, I believe, the 6th of October already. I think Saskatchewan's has happened, and Alberta's was coming. I think Alberta takes effect the last day of October, the 31st, if I'm not mistaken. So we have a pandemic. We can't get enough healthcare workers to work in the hospitals. So the solution is to terminate or put on unpaid leave, or I don't think there's any cases of paid leave. I think it's all unpaid leave, administrative unpaid leaves for healthcare workers who have not received their fully vaccinated status by whatever the date is in their province where it's being mandated. Not sure what they hope to accomplish with this, because we went from 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and healthcare workers are heroes, to if you don't have your 2 experimental gene therapy shots, you literally are not allowed to have your job. Seems counterintuitive from my perspective.
Yes. Sorry, Mike. I don't know what the heck happened there.
It's all right.
I
don't know. This is very confusing. I think my favorite part was the very end of the article. There's a quote from an emergency room doctor in Edmonton. We're so underwater right now that losing a couple people who don't want to get vaccinated, it's going to be sad, but the impact will be minimal. Okay, so we're talking about firing thousands of healthcare workers in Alberta, but the system is so overworked that losing literally thousands of staff won't change the healthcare system in Alberta.
Yeah.
What?
They should all go to Quebec. Aren't they paying like 18 Gs?
Quebec has, yes. Quebec is looking for nurses, isn't it? Quebec is looking for nurses. Quebec is looking for 4,300 full-time nurses.
And they're willing to pay up to 18,000.
In this article, it says 15,000. It might have gone up since then, because I think this is a little bit older. This article is from, this is yesterday. This was 10th October. This is pretty recent. So they've got 25,000 healthcare workers in Quebec that are not yet fully vaccinated. Quebec deadline is later this week, October the 15th. So that'll be Friday. Quebec has incentives for $15,000 for 4,300 full-time nursing positions to try and get those people to be vaccinated, or find people who are vaccinated that want to be nurses, or qualified to be nurses, which is like, again, like the number here is mind-numbing. 25,000 healthcare providers in Quebec that don't have their 2 experimental vaccine gene therapy shots.
Yeah.
And Quebec's solution is naturally spend other people's money to try and solve the problem. I don't.
Yeah. See, like the giant problem I have with all this is actually calling it a fucking vaccine.
Well, they've changed the definition of vaccine, you see. That's the...
Oh, they did?
Yes. You have to... over the last 20 years, the Center for Disease Control in the U.S. has changed the definition of vaccines 3 times. I don't have it memorized, so I will do my best to drunkenly paraphrase it. A vaccine is a thing that stops you from getting or transmitting a communicable disease. A vaccine is a thing that reduces the chances of you getting or transmitting a communicable disease. A vaccine is a thing that reduces the severity of the effects of a communicable disease.
So I only agree with statement number 1.
Well, but that's the definition of vaccine that you and I grew up with. And then I don't have the numbers handy. I had this worked out the other day. I was talking to somebody about this. And about 8 or 10 years ago, the CDC changed the definition so that it was to reduce the chances of transmission. Right, and then during COVID, they changed it to reduce the symptoms, reduce the severity of the symptoms.
So like pre-COVID, technically the flu shot was a vaccine.
Yes.
Oh.
So there's quietly been this very 1984-esque. I'm really glad we do book club, and I have all of these, like, they're not pop culture references when they're the books that we do on book club, but like the memory holing and the changing. I like Orwell. I don't think it's a very difficult read. I don't know that it's a particularly great book. I think it's a little bit overrated for what it is, but the 1984 is what is going on now. We've always been at war with Eurasia, right? Because the idea of memory holing and changing history as it's because like you go on the CDC website now, and it says that a vaccine is a thing that reduces the symptoms of a disease. It reduces the effects of a disease, something like this. I'm paraphrasing and drinking and somebody can go and fact check me. It's fine. I'm not allowed on the. I violate community standards, so I'm not allowed on social media anyway to spread false information. But they've slowly changed these definitions over time, and it does seem very 1984-y to go back and to alter these definitions and their meaning, and things that are commonly accepted now have a new meaning. So now we've got the vaccine that makes it so you don't get quite so sick if you catch the Rona, or you got the vaccine for the flu shot that doesn't stop you from getting the flu.
Yeah, no, Chris brings up a good point on YouTube. Vaccine in 2022, the definition is going to be is a thing injected in your arm.
I mean,
Yeah.
not wrong.
Well, I don't 100% agree with it, but like, yeah, no, I could see that definition changing in the next little bit. Well played, good sir.
Well, I think we'll do one more. Ian's not on to defend himself any longer. So this is on CBC. This is from today. Police find 174 gun in senior's house during wellness check.
And how about
76-year-old man with dementia. 76-year-old man with dementia taken to hospital for psychiatric care. Police got 174 firearms, mostly of World War II vintage, from the gentleman's home. The firearms were not stored safely. So how much you want to bet that he didn't have trigger locks?
Yeah. They were all loaded with one in the chamber. That's what they want you to say. That's what they want you to think.
That's what they want you to think, right? Is like these are all like operational belt-fed machine guns just sitting in this guy's living room. And I mean, like 174 guns is like, it's no small number of firearms. Like this, it sounds like this guy collected stuff and had a room full of guns.
Yeah. And I mean like a room full, as in like some are piled on top of each other. You ever try to put 174 guns in a room? Like,
I mean, yeah, one time in college, but we don't talk about
like
that.
That sounds like a lot of not engineering, but like shelf building or gun rack
Jenga.
building.
Tactical Jenga.
Like if you're just stacking them, like you get some 2x4s or whatever, you can build some racks along all the wall. Like the room I'm in, you could probably pile quite a bit, but like 174 guns is a fuckload of guns.
Well, and remember, World War II vintage guns, they're going to be large firearms. They're not little carbines, right? Like a Lee Enfield is not a small rifle.
No, I mean, I'd like to see a list
short
of what
rifle.
this guy had.
Which is a misleading name, really, because it's like the short magazine Lee Enfield, right? But they're not actually that short, but neither here nor there.
No, but literal seeds for not being stored properly.
So if you happen to be near West 15th Avenue and Granville Street, don't go to the brewery and buy the weird beer, but maybe go see if this guy wants to be your friend, because it sounds like he had a bunch of cool toys.
Fucking right, man. I'm hoping he's got like another property that nobody knows about, and he's got some more shit stored there. Because like if all these guns were right, like if they were World War II and this guy's 87, so I mean, maybe some of these, maybe he never went through the actual process of getting a firearms license. When did the firearms license become law in Canada?
Depends on which one, but generally we say like 1987 is the current. Yeah, like that's when the FACs came into effect.
Yeah, I want to say early, I was thinking like 1980s, right? So if this guy had got a bunch of guns at like the end of the 70s / like 81, 82, right? He doesn't have a firearms license. So like these guns are just gonna be tossed to the burner, right? Like,
oh, very likely.
Yeah. And as Ian said when we were talking about this, like, how much history is in there? Like, how cool would it be if these 174 guns, were somehow used by Canadian troops overseas? And if the military or anybody was able to find serial numbers of, equipped issue, and like being able to go to a family, just being like, hey, your great grandfather that died during World War II, this was his service rifle that he died with. How cool would that be to fucking get?
Well, or to literally to go to a regimental museum or someplace like the Royal Canadian Military Institute that has a museum in Toronto, or yeah, there's lots of places that these firearms could go that's not the smelter that would be a lot better for historical purposes. And I mean, they could all be just junk Enfields, right? It could be 174 like non-working, but dude might have like Vickers machine guns that
Right? But
could
even
be.
if it was an Enfield, right? Like if your great
Yeah,
grandfather
if it
in
was
World War
of
II,
significance to you and your family, absolutely.
right? But let's say, you found 10 rifles like that, where you could bring it to a family and be like, your great grandfather died or a family member of some sort passed away serving this country. And somehow they can trace back the serial number of the issued weapon to them or whatever. And someone in the family has a firearms license, just being like, here's a family heirloom for you.
Yep.
Wouldn't that be way cooler than
Way better than melting it down?
melting, even way better to that family of it going to a museum.
Yeah,
right? Like,
absolutely. I did some quick interning. I was wrong. It wasn't 1987. FACs were 1977.
so I mean, this guy was
But no
still
cigar.
Yeah, this guy was still old enough to be able to.
Well, and again,
do
it's
anything.
depending on what it was and how it was acquired. It's possible this guy's had these guns for decades.
Years.
And it's possible that they were all legally owned and they just weren't being stored in accordance with the current Firearms Act.
Which
You could have had them all registered at some point.
Yeah, but yeah, it just sucks that one of the first things they're going to do is probably just destroy these, right?
Destroy all these guns, yeah. Disappointing. And Vancouver PD, I'm surprised they haven't yet, but I mean, it only just happened today. I'm surprised they haven't posted pictures of a group of constables posing with all of these different guns that they've taken off the streets, all of these dangerous assault rifles that are no longer harming the citizenry of Vancouver.
Or at least how they were not stored properly.
I've met some old people with firearms. I'm betting they were just like laying about in a room somewhere in a closet or a corner, or in this case, every corner of the house, because there's 170 of them. I bet they were just left laying around because old people with guns, this is a thing that happens sometimes.
Yeah. So I don't know. It just is what it is, right?
It's disappointing. I'd much rather see these firearms go to somebody who appreciates their historic value, whatever that is, rather than being chopped up for scrap, melted down, whatever. How are you making out with the book club book this month? You've read Delta Force before, right? Not sure if my internet died or maybe Pierre's. Well, book club this month, we're doing Inside Delta Force in October. Book club is, of course, the last Monday of the month. And if you use the link, you're back?
Oh, you're back? Oh, okay. You were all frozen on my screen. I was good with mine. I read Delta Force, not Inside Delta Force, but I actually read a good 3-4 chapters last night, and I'm like, I'm enjoying the book, and due to reading the previous book where I'm at the point where he's going through, or he's past selection and he's meeting the commander, which is Charlie Beckwith. So I read his book previously, and the difference in how he describes him compared to how he describes himself in the book I read, and some of the training they're going through, I'm really enjoying it. Easy read, few long chapters, so all depending how you read. Reading puts me to sleep. So if it's like a 50-page chapter, I have a really hard time finishing it. But well worth the read. Absolutely.
They are long chapters. I mean, I'm almost done. I'm looking forward to this month's book club. It'll be a good time. I've got lots of post notes in my copy with my little notes to myself about what to talk about on the show. Next month, November, we're doing a handbook for right-wing youth. Julius Evola's opinion. I don't know. It's kind of we're trying to make up for making everybody suffer through Rules for Radicals, the Saul Alinsky book that we did a couple of months ago. Trying to bring some balance into your life. We're also on Discord. If people want to come and hang out on there, Discord's been pretty active lately. I think the other CPP is catching up now. We have a little over 70 users on our Discord. It's like 75, maybe we're close to 80. The other CPP now, I believe they're at about 45 users, although they did make a lot of bots. So they definitely have more bots than we have, but we have more actual listeners than they have. So other CPP did get a Discord. So if you want to hang out with the Canadian Prepper podcast, go to our Discord, link in the show notes, and then you can follow the link through to their Discord, because I'm not putting their Discord link in my show notes. I'm sure there's lots of people that listen to both shows, and I know that we've got people that have gone back and forth because we do have some common panelists like Ian, who we did hear from. There are no black helicopters at his house. They did have a power outage, though. I can see that Ian is really on top of his preps, because in the 40 minutes that he's been gone, he has not turned the generator on and gotten back on air. So his prepper mission for next week is to fix his generator so that he can podcast.
Could be potentially, because they don't have enough people to fill up the backup generator from the other CPP.
A strong possibility. So if you want to hang out with us on Discord, we're there. If you want to listen to Ian when he shows up for podcasting, this podcast or Canadian Prepper podcast are both good choices. Pierre, where can everybody find you?
Off the wall customizing. There's a bunch of social stuff. My wife takes care of that. If you send an email, it goes to both of us. Anything on social media, it'll go to her. But she's good shit. She'll figure it out. And yeah, if absolutely, she'll get my input. But whatever she says goes. We're good.
That's fair. If you've listened to the show this long, you deserve a discount code. Go to ragnaroktactical.ca, buy some first aid or tactical supplies. Use the discount code Patriot when you check out. Literally take food from my child's mouth when you do that. It's more money that I'm not putting into his college fund, but neither here nor there. Use the discount code Patriot when you check out. $10 flat rate shipping. And good news, it's October and Canada Post is doing Small Business Tuesdays again. So your order might be delayed a couple days so I can ship that shit for free.
Sounds good. I got to make an order anyways. Once you get I haven't checked your website in a few days, but once you get a few things in stock, I'll be making a big order anyways.
There you go.
My wife's EDC trauma kits.
Nice. So we've got that going. I think, almost forgot. I have to apologize to Rod Giltaka. We tried to get Rod on the show to answer the CCFR question. He was really busy. He promises next week he will come on to talk about the CCFR. But I also didn't do a lot of research ahead of the time to tell you about the CCFR. So hopefully it worked out. We'll try to get Rod on next week to fill in the blanks.
Thankfully, it wasn't this week because he may have gotten a powder outage.
Well, yeah, I guess BC's having some power. I don't know. Just don't do communism, then you wouldn't have these problems, BC. If you want to send the show hate mail, you can do that. Feedback at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. I'll probably invite you on to talk shit on the internet because that's what I do.
How do you think I got on the panel?
By being bullied by your wife.
That's beside the point. Most people don't know.
How do you think I started the show? By getting bullied by my wife.
I got thrown under the bus on the 300 colon episode. I was actually sitting in the chair in my underwear, no shirt. She was like, "You should go on." I was like, "Yeah, I gotta put a shirt on." So I didn't want to. So she threw me under the bus. And I was more mad that I had to put a shirt on. But I'm very thankful because I've been on the show.
Now you have more shirts than you know what to do with?
Yes. Anything you can think of, we can make it. Check out I don't know. Check out social medias. You got any questions, send an email. I'll figure it out. Yeah.
For all of you listeners out there in podcast land, I'd like to remind you that you are